I want to start this video by shouting out the community. You guys know I read every single comment, and the other week after I covered the R&R Express shutdown, one of you dropped a comment that sent me down a rabbit hole. You said, Marcellus, the stranded drivers are just the tip of the iceberg. You need to look at the money. Well, I looked at the money, and what I found is absolutely terrifying. We are watching one of the biggest, messiest collapses in recent logistic history unfold in real time. This isn't just a story about a bad market. This is a story about $100 million in debt, allegations of fraud, and a corporate shell game that left thousands of truckers holding the bag. Now, on this video, I'm going to do a deep dive into the R&R Express scandal. I'm going to look at the lawsuits that were filed weeks ago, the $65 million in unpaid bills, and the shady real estate transfer that happened just days before the lights went out. Now, if you're an owner-operator or if you run a small fleet, you need to watch this, because if it can happen to a giant like R&R, it can happen to anyone. So let's get into it. First, let's set the stage. If you've been following the channel, you know about R&R Express. That was the trucking company based in North Carolina that was owned by the R&R Family of Companies. Now, on January 12, 2026, they shut the doors. We heard the horror stories: drivers stranded in rest stops, fuel cars declined, hotel reservations canceled. It was a tragedy, and it broke my heart to see good drivers treated like that. But while we were focused on the drivers, the banks and the lawyers were focused on something else. They were focused on the corporate headquarters in Pittsburgh. Because as it turns out, the R&R Express shutdown was just the first domino in a much larger chain reaction. On January 22nd, just a few weeks ago, a carrier named Vantage Carrier LLC filed a massive lawsuit in federal court. Now, Vantage isn't a small mom and pop operation. They are a serious carrier, and they claim that R&R Express and its sister company, RFX, owe them $1.3 million. Let that number sink in. $1.3 million in unpaid freight bills. Now, according to the court documents, Vantage hauled hundreds of loads for R&R throughout 2025. They did all the work. They burnt the diesel. They paid the drivers. And R&R, they allegedly ghost them. But the lawsuit goes deeper than just unpaid bills. Vantage is making a claim called piercing the corporate veil. They are arguing that R&R Express, RFX, and all these other little entities were really just alter egos of each other. They allege that these companies were sharing offices, sharing employees, and shuffling money between bank accounts to hide it. The accusation is simple. They were robbing Peter to pay Paul. They were taking cash from one company to plug the holes in another, all while knowing they couldn't pay the carriers who were actually moving the freight. But wait, it gets worse. Now, the next day, January 23rd, another lawsuit dropped. This one was filed in Texas by a brokerage called Jimenez Logistics. Now, Jimenez Logistics claimed they are owed over $260,000. Now, here's the dirty part. Jimenez alleges that R&R and RFX hired them to move freight when R&R knew they were insolvent. Think about that. R&R is a broker. Jimenez is a broker. The lawsuit alleges that R&R was effectively double brokering loads to get cash in the door, knowing full well they didn't have the liquidity to pay the bill when it came due. When you hire a vendor knowing that you can't pay them, that isn't just bad business. That is crossing the line into fraud. Now, those lawsuits are bad, but the one that is going to keep the executives up at night was filed by Huntington National Bank. This is the big one. Huntington Bank claims that the R&R Family of Companies is in default on over $40 million in loans. But that's not the scary part. In the court filing, the bank revealed that R&R has approximately $65 million in unpaid trade payables. Trade payables is a fancy banker talk for money owed to vendors. In our world, that means money owed to you, money owed to the trucking companies. $65 million. That is money that should be in the pockets of owner operators. That is money that should be paying for tires and insurance and truck notes. Instead, it is gone. And where did it go? This is the part of the story that makes me angry. According to the Huntington Bank lawsuit, the executives at R&R knew the ship was sinking in late 2025. The bank had told them to wind down operations. They knew the end was coming. So what did they do? Did they try to pay the drivers? The lawsuit alleges that on December 29th, 2025, just 2 weeks before they stranded those drivers at RNR Express, the founder transferred a valuable piece of real estate in Florida out of the company's name, specifically a property on Marco Island. The bank is calling this a fraudulent transfer. They are saying the company moved that asset to hide it from creditors to keep it safe while the company burnt down. So while drivers were sleeping in freezing cabs because their hotel cars were declined, the allegation is that the ownership was busy trying to save their vacation home. Let that sit with you for a second. So how does a giant like R&R collapse like this? It's the same old story. Aggressive expansion at the wrong time. Back in 2022 and 2023, when rates were high, R&R was buying everybody. They bought Load to Ride out of Denver. They bought RNR Express. They were trying to build an empire, but they bought all those assets right before the freight recession hit its lowest point. They got too big, too fast with too much debt. And when the cash flow dried up, instead of admitting defeat, the lawsuits allege they started playing games. They kept booking freight. They kept hiring carriers. They kept the scheme going as long as possible, hoping for a miracle that never came. Now, I know I have people watching this who are owed money by R&R and RFX. Here's the hard truth. With $40 million owed to the bank and $65 million owed to carriers, the line to get paid is going to be very, very long. The bank always eats first. That is the law of the jungle. However, if you have unpaid invoices, you need to file against their surety bond immediately. But be realistic. A $75,000 bond doesn't go very far when there is $65 million in debt. The bigger lesson here is about protection. Number one, what you should always do is listen to the credit reports. I know we all hate factoring companies sometimes, but in this case, the factoring companies saw this coming. Many of them had R&R on a no-buy list months ago. If your factoring company says no, do not haul the load. I don't care how good the rate per mile is. A $5,000 load pays $0 if the check bounces. And number two, you need to diversify. R&R was a top 100 broker. They had awards. They had a fancy website. It didn't matter. In this market, nobody is too big to fail. If you have one broker giving you 80% of your freight, you are not a business owner. You are an employee with no benefits. You have to spread that risk out. I want to thank the subscriber who pointed me towards this court filing. This is why we have this community over here at Trucking with MBR. We look out for each other on this channel. This R&R situation is a mess, and it's going to get messier. There will be bankruptcy hearings, there will be more lawsuits, and there will likely be criminal investigations if these fraud allegations hold up. I will keep monitoring the docket. If there are updates on how carriers can file claims, I will post them in the community tab. Until then, check your broker's credit score, watch your days to pay, and keep your head on a swivel. And make sure you smash that like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel so you can catch more videos like this, and turn on your post notifications. And also, if you want to start a final mile box truck business, check out my free course here on YouTube. The link is always in the description box below. And make sure you check out the video below on the screen where I talk about how the DOT just killed the electric truck. Now, on this video, I talk about the PHMSA safety inquiry, the weight paradox, the infrastructure lie, and the diesel comeback. Once again, I'm Marcellus with Trucking with MBR. Stay safe on the road, and I'll see you on the next video.